século XX, final da década de 60, o Festival de Woodstock marca o auge da contracultura e torna popular o movimento hippie. O mundo acompanha uma revolução social onde a palavra de ordem é liberdade. Mas como todo processo histórico, esse movimento não aconteceu de uma hora para outra. Na verdade, teve início 20 anos antes, com nomes como Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg e William Burroughs. Rebeldia e inconformismo marcaram a chamada geração beat americana. Embalados pelo jazz e o blues de insatisfeitos com a conformidade social, os beatniks desafiaram o sistema. Nada mais era proibido. Tudo era possível. No documentário A Inspiração, você vai ver a história da geração beat, contada pelos seus protagonistas.
Ginsberg has made a lasting impact as a poet and a scholar, and whereas his candor and scholarship has served as an inspiration to an entire generation, now therefore I, Mayor of the City of Boulder, do hereby designate Sunday, July 3rd as Allen Ginsberg Day.
The becoming of Dean Moriarty began the part of my life you could call my life on the road. In the bar, I told Dean, hell, man, I know very well you didn't come to me only to want to become a writer, and after all, what do I really know about it, except you got to stick to it with the energy of a Benny addict? Because the only people for me are the mad ones. The ones who never yawn or say a commonplace thing, but burn, burn, burn like fabulous yellow Roman candles, exploding like spiders across the stars, and in the middle you see the blue central light pop and everybody goes, ah!
Ladies and gentlemen, we're honored to have on the line from Lawrence, Kansas, a great American writer whose brilliance is incomparable satire, his storytelling is insight. Let's welcome William Burroughs.
How many people are there?
Town hall is packed. The beat goes on, Bill.
I've often been asked if I had some words of advice to young people. If you were doing business with a religious son of a bitch, get it in writing. His word isn't worth a shit, not to the good Lord telling him how to fuck you on.
Gregory Corso and I collaborated almost inadvertently in building a whole mythology of a generation.
When Sputnik went up,
yeah, we did a chain poem.
Chain poem in Amsterdam, and we took a rest and went downstairs to the bathroom. And this owner of the hotel, what do you think he thinks? Two guys, right, 4 legs, were having sex. They're indignant. I say, hey, we're smoking a joint, man. We ain't having sex.
There once was a place, perhaps, where all was light, which once was the place, pray tell, some non-man-made god hung out. And so, tra-la, tra-la, it's fin de siècle again, my dears, and the music of the spheres, some kind of mad, mad laughter.
Space, like the final frontier, man. These are the voyages of the hip Starship Enterprise.
Captain, permission to beam Lawrence Ferlinghetti aboard.
Permission like granted. Where are we headed, man?
To, like, the planet Bungo.
They were the lonely voices of dissent in the 1950s. Outsiders and proud of it. They were the artists who called themselves Beats.
Hear the sound! Hear the sound! Zoom! 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 Balachate! Sputnik! H-bomb! Explosion! 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 Bang!
There's been a revival of interest in the Beat generation. Poetry readings are back, being performed at coffee houses straight out of the 50s. Even MTV now has poetry programs that would make Jack Kerouac proud.
I feel all dead inside, backed up in a dark corner. And I don't know who's hitting me.
Shorty, get me that fight from Quinn. I want money, do you understand? Money, money!
I forbid. Better buy a gun and shoot yourself.
You need money to buy a gun.
It's my first day in school. Some kids got around me, white kids. They said, "Hey, you, is your father a monkey?" I was dumb. I smiled and said no. Well, they wiped that smile right off my face. They beat it off. I had to get beat up a couple of more times before I found out that if your color just stink.
In the 40s, the bomb dropped. The entire planet was threatened biologically. It was suddenly the realization, why are we being intimidated by a bunch of jerks who don't know anything about life? Who are they to tell us what we feel and how we're supposed to behave? And why take all that bullshit?
We're at Columbia University now, and the connection here with the Beats is that this is where Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg met, and the catalytic reaction began that became the Beat movement, and that was one of the forces that helped create and I think shape the movements of the 1960s. Now, Kerouac comes down from your own fair state of Massachusetts, from Lowell. He's a working class guy. From a very early age is interested in writing. He is a great football player at Lowell's, and they offered him a football scholarship. The man who shook up America with the Beat movement basically began as a jock until he hurts his leg. And at that point, he meets Allen Ginsberg from Paterson, New Jersey, father, high school teacher, poet of minor note. And they're not talking too much about football. They were interested in something very corny, trying to find truth and meaning in life.
We weren't trying to make a social revolution particularly. We were just trying to propose our own souls to ourselves.
Were they lovers?
We felt very close to each other, just intuitively, but, you know, without any overt sexual thing, except that I was in love with him. I had a crush on him, I had a crush on everybody.
They found African-American culture fascinating. They related to weird people like William Burroughs.
Jack and I went out to investigate your soul. We both really thought you were real interesting and dignified and weird, but intelligent. Jack said, Bill's the most intelligent man in America.
Did they take a lot of drugs?
Did they take a lot of drugs?
Cannabis, datura, coca. I had a habit, man. Kept me occupied.
They were searching. They were searching. They knew they weren't satisfied with what was. And that's why we're here at Columbia, trying to inhale the atmosphere that once nurtured people who dared to be different.
Burroughs began exploring Times Square. So to see the lumpen population, he was interested in the different varieties of the bars. He met Herbert Huncke, and Huncke was living around Times Square, practically on the street.
They come strolling down the street with books under their arms.
We thought you had some kind of secret knowledge.
It was just good, healthy activity in a funny way.
We'd pick up some grass, smoke, and observe the phenomena of the red light over the roof combs of the buildings that indicated some kind of apocalyptic end of millennium consciousness.
They're all justifications.
For what?
For what? For an interest in the whole thing.
Sometimes you lose sight of the fact that these were basically college kids, except for Burroughs, who was a little older. These were basically young people who were kind of broken off in public, in a way. They were all getting loaded, and they were just making a lot of conversation that they could build off of.
Since I tell you my poem about the Empire State Building that had not doomed the dumb eyes of New York all the time, that was pretty good. He says, hey, I've got a new poem, too. All these poets, struggling to be poets. At the same time, if they want to, well, they turn over their little purple moonlight pages in which their secret naked doodlings do show. Secret scatological thought. And that's why everybody wants to see it.
America, I've given you all, and now I'm nothing. America, I used to be a communist when I was a kid. I'm not sorry. I smoke marijuana every chance I get. Whenever I go to Chinatown, I get drunk and never get laid. My mind is made up. There's going to be trouble.
I have told you that I will offer my beliefs, my affiliations, and everything else to the American public, and they will know where I stand, as they do from what I have written.
Stand away from the stand.
For Americanism for many years, and I shall
stand away from the stand.
Fight for the Bill of Rights, which you are trying to destroy.
This man away from the stand.
The country had gotten energized into the war effort of the Second World War, and when the men came back. One thing, there was the GI Bill was there. A lot of people went to school that never would have gone to school, went to the universities. There was a feeling of that America was getting a fresh start, was getting a real start.
3 years or so after the end of the war, the draft is back. The Korean War then in the early 50s, the McCarthy hearings, the House Un-American Activities Committee, the execution of the Rosenbergs, the sense of a status quo, business as usual, a kind of stolid, even comfort.
That it's the fattest civilization around, the best ever, and in reality there was an incredible provincialism and a very strong sense of conformity and a stultifying feeling that you had to get along with Life magazine, as you know what Ginsberg says, I don't want my emotional life to be read by Time.
Eisenhower's intention was that we should try to settle down to some nice, quiet American pursuits and not rock the boat. And it was time for us to ease off a bit. He accomplished that. The country was pretty quiet.
We ask every citizen to immediately report any information regarding espionage, sabotage, or un-American activities to the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
That made him such a flop. Was he beat, or when he should have bopped?
It was such a schizophrenic distinction between the private world of what everybody knew and talked about, like black culture or tea-head culture of those years, or just sexual culture or gay culture. There were all these marginalized cultures which were never represented in public.
It was friendship, affairs, intermarriage, and a sense of a community. They were the jazz musicians, and they were related to the abstract expressionists.
But that wasn't the only thing that was going on then. The poetry scene was important, but there was also the living theater was going on then. John Cage was important. Happenings were happening then.
There was a joy and an optimism
The music reflected that. Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie were breaking down those walls.
It's all insane. Then you look back, you look away, around, everything is coming in from everywhere in the sound of the jazz.
Hi, hey. We were our own audience. I mean, Kerouac wrote 7 books, or 14 books before they were published.
We were more or less united, I would say, towards increased awareness, increased freedom.
There were little connections that were making and they were building. What you had here, as near as I can tell, was a collection or a gathering of very, very great intelligence.
Dostoevsky's Notes from the Underground is the model of a lot of these people, the guy who lives in some kind of hole and rails at what's going on around him. Many of us, without knowing Dostoevsky, thought that was our role.
To write poetry, to write music, to paint, to act, to dance, to dare to dream.
Alan had this vision, these late visions, and he suddenly said, we're taking over the universe.
C'est vous qui l'avez inventé, ce terme-là, Beat Generation. J'ai entendu des vieux bonhommes dire ça, des vieux nègres. Ouais. Dans le sens de écrasé, vaincu. Oui. Oh.
Well, beat, got the bebop beat so that you have a sense of timing. Then there's the Catholic thing of beatitude, you know, like sacred and holy.
Beatitude.
Hunky gave it as one I would usually give it. If somebody wants to tell you their problem and all that, you say, not now, man, I'm beat.
When the Sputnik went up, and he said, oh, these guys are out of this world. Beatniks.
Beatniks, nutniks, they all act like they was behind the door when the brains was handed out.
Well, Mr. Ginsburg, maybe about 2 months after I had left prison, 49?
You said 50.
That was for the beginning of 1950. But I'm sorry for one fucking little mistake. Stay out of it.
Women were pretty much ornaments for the men in the beats, and they were the caretakers.
They got away with murder because what they were proselytizing produced the male artist hero.
Patty cake. Patty cake.
Sylvia, did you see me wave my Zen stick? And there was a look all the women had, a certain look. It was hard to tell them from each other.
I don't think we were particularly machismo. Actually, Burroughs and I were queer, very sensitive and literary.
Well, some of our best friends are women.
Most of them were gay, except Jack. Now, Jack had a tough time with women in a way. When I got in trouble with him, he got very unhappy that I fucked his girl. But that was the time when I did not know Jack. I was just introduced him. It wasn't as if I fucked my best friend's girl.
It's the beat generation. It's Beat. It's the beat to keep. It's the beat of the heart. It's being beat and down in the world and like old-time lowdown. And like in ancient civilizations, the slave boatmen rowing galleys to a beat.
We didn't expect to be represented in public. We just wanted to represent ourselves and write for heaven, you know, building up treasures in heaven. I think Kerouac despaired of ever having his work published.
I read the book, and I was simply stunned. I said then I believed that it was as perfect an expression of a generation as Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises.
Kerouac was a writer. That is, he wrote. The difference being a bullfighter who fights a bull is different from a bullshitter who makes passes with no bull there.
And Truman Capote got jealous and went on the Tonight Show and said it wasn't writing, it was typing.
Yeah. Fuck him.
And now Truman's in the great Tonight Show and this guy's still wearing his white coat while Jack's 15 books are translated into 11 languages all over the world.
Life magazine came around to interview us for an article on the Beat Generation. And I thought, Jesus, if they think that we have anything to say, they must be scraping the bottom of the barrel. They must be pretty desperate.
Now the lesson is over
to get on your feet and go to town and dig the beat.
Dois livros, On the Road, de Jack Kerouac, e Uivo, de Allen Ginsberg, abrem as estradas da literatura e espalham o libelo da geração beat pelos Estados Unidos. Você vai conhecer um pouco da obra dos dois poetas na interpretação de Johnny Depp e John Turturro depois do intervalo. Nós voltamos já já.
Jack, got a couple of square questions, but I think the answers will be interesting. How long did it take you to write On the Road?
3 weeks.
3 weeks? Jeez, that's amazing. How long were you on the road itself?
7 years.
7 years. Yeah, I was on the road once for 3 weeks, and it took me 7 years to write about it. Or the other way around. I've heard that you write so fast that you don't like to use regular typing paper, but instead you prefer to use one big, long roll of paper. Is that true?
Yeah. When I write narrative novels, and I want to change my narrative thought, I keep going.
Wonderful part of Jack's On the Road was when he said, our battered suitcases were piled on the sidewalk again. We had longer ways to go, but no matter. The road is life.
I'd often dreamed of going west to see the country, always vaguely planning and never taking off. I left with my canvas bag and took off for the Pacific Ocean.
The whole nation was tilting westward. It was like a drink that had been stirred for the Second World War, and it hadn't settled down yet.
Somewhere along the line, I knew there'd be girls, visions, everything. Somewhere along the line, Burl would be handled.
There's just nothing like being out on American road. You get outside, something happens to you, and when you're traveling through outside, the wind goes over the top of your head, and you get a static charge. You'll see people with their hair standing on end like this who've been driving a long time, and their eyes kind of wild. It's a high. The center of gravity of our imagination and poetics moved off the East Coast and came out into these grasslands. There was the expansion of a heart to learn and enjoy all of America. And that included, as you see in Jack's work and in Alan's work, the lives and minds of ordinary people.
We arrived at Council Bluffs at dawn. All winter I'd been reading the great wagon parties that held council there. And of course now it was only cute suburban cottages all laid out in the dismal gray dawn. Then Omaha, and by God, the first cowboy I saw in a 10-gallon hat and Texas boots. Looked like any beat character of the brick-walled dawns of the East, except for the getup.
America, this is quite serious. America, this is the impression I get from looking in the television set. America, is this correct? It's true, I don't want to join the army or turn lathes and precision parts factories. I'm nearsighted and psychopathic anyway. America, I'm putting my clear shoulder to the wheel.
And away we go! Into the interior. A vast subdivision antenna of television to the meaningless sky. In life-proof houses, they hover over the young. Sop up a little of what they shut out. Only the young bring anything in, and they are not young very long.
Just ahead, over the rolling wheat fields, all gold beneath the distant snows of Estes, I'd be seeing old Denver at last. There were smokestacks, smoke, rail yards, red brick buildings, and the distant downtown gray stone. I stumbled along with the most wicked grin of joy in the world among the old bums and beat cowboys. I felt like an arrow that could shoot out all the way.
A high tower on a wide plain. If you climb up one floor, you'll see 1,000 miles more. Right over those knolls over there, something wonderful is going to be. But you found out the more you went, there was just more knolls.
So, in America, when the sun goes down, and I sit on the old broken-down river pier watching the long, long skies over New Jersey, and sense all that raw land that rolls in one unbelievable huge bulge over to the West Coast, and all that road going. I think of Dean Moriarty. I even think of old Dean Moriarty, the father we never found. I think of Dean Moriarty. I think of Dean Moriarty.
Well, I don't think there is any real Neil. Kerouac's, I think, had a sort of an idealized figure of Neil as this on-the-road character. I mean, he's sort of the on-the-road personified.
It was such an overwhelming trip. Cassidy, I don't know. It's hard to even know what to say about Cassidy. He was so singular. He was the first person I met who he himself was the art. A lot of people thought he was crazy, you know, a lot of people were afraid of him, and most people I know didn't understand him at all, you know. But he was like a musician.
He was like Charlie Mingus. He played the bass line. Whatever else happened was happening around his bass line, and he used the gear shift and the bus and
Jack was in poker faces with bullets back with bitches. No one was there, but I went. He hunched at the wheel, putting everyone in stitches. Bragging about some nurses screwed while driving through Nebraska. When she came, she honked the horn.
Cassidy was a sort of self-taught prison boy who came to New York to go con Kerouac into teaching him how to write.
He was a great driver.
None of these always behind.
And I don't mean a fast driver, I mean a great driver. His page was this highway, and that his writing tool was one of these cars.
All right, there we go. One-handed delight. No, that's masturbating. No.
Nothing in the world he liked better than getting about 6 scared kids in the car and bring them back about 3 days later, and their eyes looked like fried boats.
His special thing was that he could remember the chain of thought that went before that led up to a moment of conversation.
I went here yesterday and jumped and jittery around, and so it looked like I was high, so I just let people think I was high. Everybody has forms, and everything's known, and the forms are changing. There's no life in the forms.
Just his whole body language and everything was so communicative. It was just amazing.
It's already too late. The Pentagon is taking care of all that. We're doing this deliberately. As far as that goes. Now,
the Pentagon is doing what deliberately?
Well, I don't know. Who's running the country? Do you?
We began rolling in the foothills before Oakland and saw stretched out ahead of us the fabulous white city of San Francisco. No more land, yelled Dean. Can't go no further because there ain't no more land.
The war displaced everyone, and they didn't go back home. It was a little like after any war, and it was certainly like after the Civil War when people like Mark Twain were displaced and ended up in San Francisco. He was a carpetbagger in the way, just like the East Coast beats were all carpetbaggers, including myself. We were in the tradition of dissidents. So we started City Lights. The idea was to create a literary meeting place.
There was already cultivated a San Francisco Renaissance. There always was a anarchist, pacifist, anti-Stalinist, anti-authoritarian, literary, bohemian, anti-war circle.
People who want to be themselves, basically. People who want to remain true to their very being. People who don't want to play the game. People who want to be whatever they are.
And that manifested itself in literature and painting, in bohemian parties, poetry readings.
I would go into a macho bar and jump on the pool table and read some poems. Now, either I got beat up or I made $50. Most of the times I made $50. It was a cold night in the big city where love is the roar and death is the beat, and I yelled like a madman at the top of my voice. Everybody sing, everybody sing. And I started to sing a song about pretty flowers, and then the men in their white coats came with their jackets, and I told them to sing also let's sing a song, let's sing a song. And they took me away, away, away from the roar and the beat, the beat, the beat. Let's sing a song.
Like, man, I'm here, and I mean, I've met a swinging group here. I like Frisco the most, man, because, I mean, the town jumps, you know? I mean, there are a lot of scenes, man, and so, I mean, it's like that, you know?
Kenneth Rexroth is sort of the philosopher, the anarchist philosopher who preceded us in San Francisco, said that San Francisco was to the artists as Barcelona was to the Spanish anarchists. That is, it was a haven for thinking and feeling people. In those days, we were all outlaws. Anybody who had feelings of their own, or had their hair a little bit too long, or had an idea of their own, or wanted to experience new states of consciousness, or to deepen themselves, or to grow a soul, or to feel anything out of the ordinary, was a renegade.
I'm Stephen Ronan, beat historian. Here I am at 3119 Fillmore, location of the former Six Gallery, where poet Allen Ginsberg debuted his poem Howl, and history hasn't been the same since.
Rexroth had been invited to organize a reading at the Six Gallery. He suggested to McClure or myself that we organize it, and it fell to me. And Rexroth gave me Gary Snyder's address. Snyder was a student studying Chinese, Japanese, and Zen.
Alan and I lined up that space with the idea of holding a reading for our various relatively unpublished friends.
What we were interested in was our own writing and talking with people who were also trying to write and paint and whatever else, and trying to get our way someplace else, get a new start that would gently replace a lot of this slobber.
And we stepped out on the stage.
With Kerouac in the audience, with Neil Cassidy in the audience.
We didn't know who would be there. We didn't know who to expect.
I followed the whole gang of howling poets to the reading at Gallery 6 that night, which was, among other important things, the night of the birth of the San Francisco Poetry Renaissance. Scores of people stood around in the darkened gallery, straining to hear every word of the amazing poetry reading as I wandered from group to group, urging them to glug a slug from the jug, or wandered back and sat on the right side of the stage, giving out little wows and yeses of approval.
Kevin was only half as far that night, listening to the burnt phrases, when I heard the poet out rhyming erection.
When Alan read Howl, we all knew that a line had been drawn in the sand. We decided that we would put our foot on that line that Alan drew.
I was there, and the next morning I sent a telegram to Allen Ginsberg saying, I greet you at the beginning of a great career. When do we get the manuscript?
I had a conversation with Rexroth the next day. I said, gee, I'm going to be famous in San Francisco or in North Beach. And he said, you're going to be famous from bridge to bridge.
The first edition was printed in England. It was seized by the U.S. Customs in San Francisco. All during the trial, we were still selling it. We never took the book out of the window.
There were a series of trials in the late 50s that liberated the word, and that meant a whole spiritual liberation after that.
It's really hard to get that kind of publicity.
What I've always loved about Alan is precisely his bravery. I once wrote a poem about him. It went like this. Sometimes I think that ugly little queer, that four-eyed kike is the bravest man in America.
I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness, starving, hysterical, naked, angel-headed hipsters burning
for the ancient heavenly connection to the starry dynamo in the machinery of night, who poverty and tatters and hollow-eyed and high sat up smoking in the supernatural darkness of cold water flats floating across the tops of cities, contemplating jazz. who cowered in unshaven rooms and underwear, burning their money in wastebaskets and listening to the terror through the wall, who got busted in their pubic beards returning through Laredo with a belt of marijuana for New York, who ate fire in paint hotels or drank turpentine in Paradise Alley, death or purgatory, their torsos night after night with dreams, with drugs, with waking nightmares. Peyote solidities of walls, green trees, cemetery dawns, white drunkenness over the rooftops, storefront burrows, a tea-head, joyride, neon blinking, traffic light, sun, the moon and tree vibrations in the roaring winter dusks. Who talk continuously 70 hours from park to pad to bar to Bellevue to museum to the Brooklyn Bridge, a lost battalion of platonic conversationalists jumping down the stoops, off fire escapes, off windowsills, off the Empire State, out of the moon. Yakety-yakketing, screaming, vomiting, whispering facts and memories and anecdotes and eyeball kicks and shocks of hospitals and jails and wars, who loaned it through the streets of Idaho seeking visionary Indian angels, who were visionary Indian angels, who howled on their knees in the subway and were dragged off the roof waving genitals and manuscripts, who wandered around and around at midnight in the railroad yard wondering where to go and went leaving no broken hearts, who lit cigarettes in boxcars, racketing through snow toward lonesome farms and grandfather night, and rose, reincarnate in the ghostly clothes of jazz and the gold horn shadow of the band. Carl Sullivan, I'm with you in Rockland, where you're madder than I am. I'm with you in Rockland, where we wake up electrified out of the coma by our own souls. Airplanes roaring over the roof, they've come to drop. Angelic bombs, the hospital illuminates itself. Imaginary walls collapse. Oh, skinny legions run outside. Oh, starry-spangled shock of mercy. The eternal war is here. Oh, victory! Forget your underwear! We're free! I'm with you in Rockland. In my dreams, you walk dripping from a sea journey on the highway across America in tears to the door of my cottage in the western night.
The poem had an immense effect on me, and I felt immediately that Ginsberg was at the least a major poet, maybe a genius.
I had no idea that it would be famous. There was no idea that it was of such value to other people. Apparently it was.
I just had never read any poetry that was that charged, that intense, that extraordinary, and I knew he was going to make a revolution in the consciousness of his time.
So the Six Gallery's still there. It's just in a different place.
Daqui a pouco, Dennis Roper interpreta William Burroughs. O escritor criou uma obra reunindo mais de 500 páginas de anotações soltas e sem ordem pré-definida de capítulos. No livro, O Almoço Nu, Burroughs mostra o universo das drogas sob a perspectiva de quem viveu intensamente o vício. Você vê depois do intervalo.
Once a month, we will book a comedian who will offend everybody.
There are words that offend me. Let's see, Governor Farvis, segregation offend me. Nighttime television offends me, some nighttime television.
Both rabbis and priests, S-H-I-T. Only one F-U-C-K's. Are you what is loosely called a beatnik?
No, I'm a poet and a painter and sculptor.
In other words, you're out of work?
That's right.
Come to be healed, come to be saved, screaming and laughing down the beach, strangling each other, devouring flesh and gnawing on fingers broken and bones of splintered. Voices heard in Venice.
Dear Alan, there's an end-of-the-world feeling in Tangier with his glut of nylon shirts, Swiss watches, scotch, and sex. The whole town is a trap. You will see it closing, but there will be no escape, no place to go.
The wayward wind is a restless wind.
These are the San Francisco shipyards at China Basin. Jack Kerouac worked near here in the railroad switching yards, and Allen Ginsberg came nearby here to write his famous Sunflower Sutra. The Beats didn't just continually travel on the road. Those who could boarded freighters like American Kestrel down there to head out on the open ocean and give in to their wanderlust internationally.
In a lonely shack by a railroad track, he spent his younger days.
Mexico is home to me, and I can't go there.
Made him a slave to his wandering way.
Got a letter from my lawyer. I am sentenced in absentia.
Is a restless wind, a restless wind.
I think she said to Bill, "I'll shoot that off my head."
I knew that the ugly spirit, which is always the worst part of everyone's character, would take over and that something awful would happen. Just an absolute piece of insanity.
It was then that he began writing.
Who are you?
I'm Bill. Who are you?
I'm Tony. Where are you, Bill?
I'm in a 1920 movie, Tony. Who are you?
I'm Tony. Who are you?
I'm Bill. I was born February 5, 1914 in St. Louis, Missouri.
I've been around for a long, long year.
I was sort of a wasp washout.
We will not listen to you. We have had enough of your common bullshit.
I left the United States because I was in trouble. My whole life has been resistance to the ugly spirit. Live with it day and night. Not anticipating any trouble, because I don't like violence.
There is no thing to fear. There is no thing.
He's probably the only guy I know who is really just all-out junkie who managed to come back, kick it in the store. Very rare. There's all kinds of addictions. Power is one of the principal addictions. When they got the power, they look sleek, satisfied. They're getting it steady. Thou shalt not blow pot smoke into the face of thy cat.
He could punch a typewriter or he could punch a tape recorder to death in shorter time than any man that I've ever known. He had such enormous energy in those days and such enormous intention behind what he was doing.
Take the enclosed copy of this letter, cut along the lines, rearrange, putting section 1 by section 3 and section 2 by section 4. Now you will hear my voice. Brian had made these cut-ups of various magazines. First cut-ups were very, very funny. Then it wasn't so funny anymore. Life is a cut-up. Every time you look out the window, and when you walk down the street, continually being caught by random factors. This is a fact of human perception, and the cut-up simply made this explicit. How does it seem to you now? How does it seem to you now?
thank you. Good. Look at that. Thank you.
Surrealism is a kind of automatic writing. Rimbaud's phrase was a systematic derangement of the senses, and the idea being that the senses are to some extent ideological, formed by external pressures.
Cowards, open fire.
And so you shatter that, break it up. Drugs, extreme experiences, kinky sex.
In fact, the official definition of surrealism is to make a work without any a priori moral or aesthetic consideration.
Over a series of years, from 53 to 57, Burroughs sent me the letters with all the chapters or routines of Naked Lunch. And then by 57, there was so much material that I had and he had that it was time for me to leave San Francisco and work on it with him to shape it into a book. Kerouac had started the typing. We arrived with all this new material, shuffled it around, typed it up.
We had about 500 pages of notes. So Brian Garson, Sinclair Bayliss, I sat down and assembled this. The chapter went to the printer. We said we'll figure out the order later, but when I came back from the printer, we took one look and said there's no necessity to make any changes.
Burroughs said, I'm not American Express. If the reader's ass is taken from Tangier to Paris in one jump, he'll have to get there himself.
If you want to be cool, you got to read, Naked Lunch, because, that's a cool book. They made a movie out of it.
They put it on trial.
It's about drugs.
There's certain requirements. If someone can't stand hours, years of solitude, sitting in a chair alone in a room, he should look for another trade, I think.
I tried to read Naked Lunch. I read halfway through it, and I pitched it. It didn't make much sense to me. It just sort of disgusts me.
Thou shalt not be such a shit you don't know you are one.
Mr. Burroughs, do you regret anything in your life?
I have no precise memory of writing the notes which have been published under the title Naked Lunch. The title was suggested by Jack Kerouac. The title means exactly what the words say, Naked Lunch, a frozen moment when everyone sees what is on the end of every fork. I can feel the heat closing in. I feel them out there making their moves, setting up their devil-doll stool pigeons, crooning over my spoon and dropper I throw away at Washington Square Station. Vault a turnstile, 2 flights down the iron stairs, catch an uptown A train. Young, good-looking, crew-cut, Ivy League advertising type fruit pulls the door back for me. I'm evidently his idea of a character. You know the type. He comes on with bartenders and cab drivers talking about right hooks and the Dodgers. Call the counterman a knee-dicks by his first name, a real asshole. And right on time, this narcotics dick in the white trench coat. Now imagine, tailing somebody in a white trench coat. Trying to pass as a fag, I guess? I can hear the way he would say it. Holding my outfit in his left hand, right hand on his piece. I think you dropped something, fella. But the subway is moving. They call me the exterminator. At one brief point of intersection, I did exercise that function and witnessed the belly dance of roaches suffocating in yellow pyrethium powder. My present assignment, find the live ones and exterminate. Not the bodies, but the moles. You understand? But I forget. You cannot understand. Tell them about it. The Meat Cafe occupies one side of the plaza. It's a maze of kitchens, restaurants, sleeping cubicles, perilous iron balconies and basements opening into the underground baths. On stools covered in white satin sit naked mugwumps, sucking translucent colored syrups through alabaster straws. Mugwumps have no liver and nourish themselves exclusively on sweets.
These creatures secrete an addicting fluid through their erect penises, which prolongs life by slowing metabolism. Boat whistle, foghorn, skyrocket burst over oily lagoons. Penny arcade open into a maze of dirty pictures. Ceremonial cannon, boom in the harbor. A scream shoots down a white hospital corridor, out along a wide, dusty street between palm trees. Whistles out across the desert like a bullet. 1,000 boys come at once in outhouses, bleak public school toilets, attics, basements, tree houses, Ferris wheels, deserted houses, limestone caves, rowboats, garages, barns, rubbly, windy city outskirts behind mud walls, smell of dried excrement, black dust blowing over lean copper bodies. Coming over a hill of rusty iron, we meet a group of natives. We throw gasoline on them and light it. White flash, mangled insect screams. I woke up with the taste of metal in my mouth, back from the dead, trailing the colorless death smell. No more. No moss. Tangier, 1959.
Dear Alan, made connection with the unassuming little witch doctor who prepared me some yahe. It is the most powerful drug I have ever experienced. That is, it produces the most complete derangement of the senses. I felt, so pulling together like that. Horrible feeling, horrible feeling.
Why do you put yourself through all that torture?
What are you talking about? You want to take yahe, you take yahe. Smoking hashish and sniffing cocaine. It took his very glamorous and easy life. Little did I know.
Clear. The senses bright. Sitting in the black chair. Rocker. The white walls reflecting the color of clouds, moving over the sun.
I would have never written Cuckoo's Nest without LSD. I think a lot of that stuff that was written by all of these guys would never have happened if they'd have just stayed on the get up early in the morning and drink a lot of coffee and do what you can.
Intimacies, the rooms, not important, but like divisions of all space, of all hideousness and beauty. I hear the music of myself.
What might be a negative experience for someone else can be a very positive experience for a writer. The damage to health from addiction is minimal.
But it has done things to your soul.
The ancient goals which we follow can be defined in modern terms, in the metaphors of the present, as turn on, tune in, and drop out.
I was a psychologist. I was running a big project at prison. So naturally, I used this new chemical, this new vegetable, which gave insight, and in 1 minute, the prisoner could see, shit, I've been playing that loser game all my life.
We are now in the psychochemical age. In the future, it's not going to be what book do you read, but which chemical do you use to open your mind, to accelerate learning.
And they were saying, LSD would make you jump out of windows. My answer to the head of the DA guy was, the rule there is never take LSD over the first floor.
I pass into the room. There's a golden bed radiating all light.
If we want to discourage use of LSD for altering our attitudes, we'll have to encourage such changes in our society that nobody will need it to break through to common sympathy.
They were carrying on a tradition, an American tradition.
It is, in effect, instant insanity.
When the time comes, the wave comes, it happens.
Do they know the difference between right and wrong? They do not.
They don't. No.
They do not know the difference between right and wrong.
I basically believe that drugs are here to help human evolve, to help us to grow in intelligence. I think we're primitive. We don't even know how to use them. You can misuse them. Assholes will always do everything in their power to fuck everything up, you know.
It's like everything else in life. I mean, you can overdose on sushi.
But still, they're there for a purpose. And I think the challenge of an intelligent life is to learn how to use drugs without abusing them. There are a lot of drugs I don't use more than once a year. I try to take every illegal drug once a year. That's like a Catholic does that, but no big deal.
No começo dos anos 60, ao som do rock and roll, a contracultura beat entrou na moda. No final da década, os precursores do movimento passaram a ser considerados gênios. Você vai ver que o mundo nunca mais foi o mesmo na última parte do documentário A Inspiração, depois do intervalo.
Good evening, fellow members of the Beat Generation.
Well, it's too piercing, man. It's too piercing.
Well, I got to do the shout.
No, man, it's too piercing. Like, I don't dig loud noises.
Well, you ruined the whole...
Yeah, well, tough. I'll take my bongos and go, man.
Only God can make a tree.
They call you Beat Generation.
I'll buy that. And I don't want any of that beatnik stuff during dinner either.
And Richard, I don't want to see you smoking any of those funny cigarettes.
Man like us, where can you get?
Was a kind of beatnik craze around the end of the 50s.
Oh, the reason we look for love is to protect ourselves from hate.
Which became parodied and co-opted.
Well, if that's true, then the reason you look for hate is to protect yourself from love.
So Gregory Corso went to Paris. Burroughs stayed in Tangiers in Paris. Kerouac became more retired at home after having a great deal of venom and mockery laid on him.
There's not enough time to read all the books, to see all the great paintings, to hear all the music, to think all the great thoughts, or just meet everybody. But you've got to try. I've got to try.
You need a girl, Leo.
Peter Orlovsky and I disappeared into India, basically. Went around the world and stayed away for 3 years and studied something new.
Buddhism is intellectually an extraordinary accomplishment, a strikingly generous, compassionate, and persistent institution.
So you're like the tree sitting there.
Practically speaking, offering real teachings, meditation.
Your muscles hanging from the trunk of the tree.
How to see and understand one's own mind.
Mouth closed, shoulders relaxed.
And in the world, make us remember that our society includes the non-human people.
So now, why don't we sit doing nothing?
I was never really heavy into Buddhism. Get Allen Ginsberg to talk about that. He can go on and on and on.
It's a big picture. It's a big heart.
You think the Buddhists see what I see? Maybe they do see what I see. Who the fuck knows? They may just well see what I see.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, fucking beautiful.
I guess it's like the argument that Alan and I always have. To me, Buddhism is another form of metaphysics. I'm a materialist. You know, my view is that the fundamental thing that exists is matter in motion.
If I can have your heart, if I can have your prayers, if the good Lord is willing, I will continue to try to lead this nation and this world to peace.
By the time I got back in '63, war was raging already. And rather than being sort of enlightened by the possibility of some open world, was trying to inflict a Catholic dictator on the Buddhist Vietnamese.
React to what? React to the greatness of the march on the day and the victory, or what? You happy with it?
Hari Om Namo Shivaya.
We were beatniks, we reveled in it, we never called each other beatniks. Then all of a sudden, in late 1966, early 67, Ginsberg and Gary Snyder and others organized this big, huge be-in San Francisco. We can climb so high. And right after the be-in, all of a sudden you were no longer a beatnik. You were a hippie. Born to be wild.
So I really didn't have any friends all through high school and college. There was nobody I could communicate with. And yet I knew that I couldn't be the only Martian.
I'm always where the action is. I blow my mind all day, while on Long Island's tennis courts the bland suburbans play.
After the first thing called the human being, that thing was like, yeah, there is a community. We're all those people who were the weird ones, you know. And it was all of a sudden you discovered all these people who were like you, influenced by the beatniks.
Don't eat those, Ma. They're Alice B. Toklas,
I love you, Alice B. Toklas.
We would all like to be able to live an uncluttered life, if you know, and like think about moving the whole human race ahead a step.
These young people were looking for a spiritual way to rebel against the American values, almost as an extension of what we'd begun doing in the 50s. They sort of looked on us as the elders of the tribe.
And what is your whole attitude to life? And when you meet somebody, what is your attitude towards them?
I don't like them.
You don't like them?
No. Sometimes the caring manifests itself as anger or other feelings that you might think of as negative. Anything that has a strong charge is where your heart is lying.
I think that the Vietnamese War is nothing but a plot between the North Vietnamese and the South Vietnamese, who are cousins, to get jeeps in the country.
They're not very good plotters, are they?
But they got a lot of jeeps.
We were rebelling against a kind of rigidity in the culture, and the Beats seemed to point out that there were lots of room in the U.S. Constitution for more freedom. We are going to Chicago, about 250,000 of young, energetic love buddies, to engage in a youth international party, sing in, grope in, love in.
What is really heightened is the consciousness which takes action.
Are you expecting trouble? We expect to march? We expect trouble all the time.
A whole generation was systematically cut off from outlets to personal meaning. We could play the game, but what was it about? No one knew.
The policeman isn't there to create disorder. The policeman is there to preserve disorder.
So we went with our more non-conforming impulse.
The Beats were originally non-political. Others who were political were really following the Beat movement to its logical conclusion.
He was wonderful.
He was an honored presence.
They had a vision, and the vision was truth, justice, and the American way. Just like the guy with the cape. They were the supermen and superwomen of our era.
Ground was really set in a way by the people who had helped us realize that we didn't have to follow what our elders told us if we really didn't think it was right. I couldn't get naked on somebody's front lawn and get myself arrested. It wasn't my style, but I really admired that. Born of distant dark planet names, I word woman, I spell it away. Mega, 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 death bomb in lighthouse.
When the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part.
I always thought that what we were doing was a patriotic act. Who has always been out there? Old crazy coots that keep out on the edge of where civilization is going. I think a lot of this comes from Cassidy and from Kerouac. Cassidy was our driver. He knew that this was going to be the best stage he was ever going to have to do his number. Never mind all that reflection. Let's see who we are. Let's turn the thing on as bright as it'll go and then see what kind of shadow we cast.
I put my back toward the screen and then spun and let the momentum carry the panel through the screen and window with a ripping crash. The glass splashed out in the moon like a bright, cold water baptizing the sleeping earth. I put my hand on the sill and vaulted after the panel into the moonlight.
Casey, do you feel that you have the right to do what you want, whatever you want, and still live in this world?
I feel a man has the right to be as big as he feels it in him to be.
This is the death of Neil Cassidy at San Miguel de Allende, where he died walking along the railroad tracks after getting stoned and whatever. You know, uppers and downers at the same time. He wasn't destined to grow old. He was always young, and he always will be. 100 years ago, he would have been on a horse, but his hot rod was his horse.
Delicate eyes that blinked blue Rockies, all ash. Nipples, ribs I touched with my thumb, or ash. Mouth my tongue touched once or twice, all ash. Our existence is so brief, as we understood it, that it becomes more poignant, more emotionally rich, knowing that it's like a dream that is already finished, as Kerouac once said. Life is a dream already over.
Jack suddenly one morning had a hemorrhage. Apparently brought on by years and years of consuming alcohol, which I guess is the typical alcoholic's death.
America by his day was sick. Hard-heartedness had taken over. So I would say America broke his heart. You just have to read the reviews of his books in those days. You know, he was put down. It was as if, you know, like knifed, and yet he was writing about enthusiasm and delight, and he was being treated like some juvenile delinquent.
Now, Jack, Mr. Kerouac, to what extent do you believe that the Beat generation is related to the hippies?
Oh,
what do they have in common? Was this an evolution from the one to the other?
They're just the older ones.
Yeah.
I'm 46 years old. These kids are 18. It's the same movement, which is apparently some kind of Dionysian movement in late civilization, in which I did not intend any more than I suppose Dionysius did, or whatever his name was.
Hey, that was good, wasn't it?
Good all the time, boy.
Give that man a drink.
Spent all the night with poets and so on. He drank and all that. And, well, I said, aren't you afraid of hell? He says, oh, no. He says, I'm concerned with heaven. He says, I'm thinking about heaven all the time. I want to see Gerard, my little brother.
He'd already scribed 1,000 dreams, 1,000 pages of Dharma, 1,000,000 words that sounded like 1,000,000 ears. His heart was tender. He'd already died and become recording angel.
Jack Kerouac, the novelist who wrote On the Road, reached the end of it today.
The 47-year-old spokesman for the Beat generation died of a massive hemorrhage in a St. Petersburg, Florida hospital.
And what love endures, all my thoughts of you, for I'm so completely yours.
All the people that leave this stuff here, it's their way. You know, it's their way of coming here. It's part of their path, you know. It's like 13-year-old kids, college kids, guys my age, old-timers. Wicked spectrum.
So, that's what's gonna happen to you?
No, I want to be in an unmarked grave.
What do you think Jack would have felt about all this?
Yeah, he would have grooved on this stuff. Why? Because this stuff comes from the heart, and that's where he was coming from.
I believe in order, tenderness, and piety.
Well, then your point was that a movement which you conceived as relatively pure has become ideologized.
No, a movement that was considered what?
Pure.
Yes, it was pure in my heart.
Don't explain.
Belief and Technique for Modern Prose by Jack Kerouac. List of essentials. 1. Scribbled secret notebooks and wild typewritten pages for your own joy. 2. Submissive to everything, open, listening. 3. Try and never get drunk outside your own house. 4. Be in love with your life. 5. Something that you feel will find its own form. 6. Be crazy, dumb saint of the mind. 7. Blow as deep as you want to blow. 8. Write what you want, bottomless, from bottom of the mind. 9. The unspeakable visions of the individual.
I'd like an omelet, plain, and a chicken salad sandwich on wheat toast.
16 years ago, we were put down for being filthy, beatnik, sex, commie, dope fiends.
Now all you have to do is hold the chicken, bring me the toast, give me a check for the chicken salad sandwich, and you haven't broken any rules.
You see that sign, sir?
You see this sign?
16 years later, Alan's the respect of his elders, the love of his peers.
Do you have nostalgia for the 50s and 60s now?
Not at all. It's more interesting now. I mean, it's the same. It's all the 50s, 60s, 70s, same thing as now. It's eternity all the time, so there's no point having nostalgia for eternity.
Bill's ever Bill, even though he stopped drugging and smoking cigarettes.
I'm very pleased tonight to introduce a man who, in my opinion, is the greatest living writer in America.
Me? I'm still considered unwashed, beatnik, sex, commie, dope fiend.
Go ahead. Wyatt. Okay, welcome.
Dear audience, we early heads of present style and consciousness are the daddies of the age.
The Beats in standing up got laughed at by the civilization. All the academic, you don't know how much hatred was for these guys, and sneers, and teachers would snicker.
Please, you may as well open.
From the moment the Beard first opened in Los Angeles, every night city vice squad detectives arrested the cast and the producer.
When are we going to get controversial again, Alan? That's all getting too sedate, don't you think so? How many years since you been busted? I mean, we're in trouble here. I was busted just 3 weeks ago. Of course. There you go.
Literary movements for 200.
Allen Ginsberg, Jack Kerouac, and Lawrence Ferlinghetti were part of this group of writers.
Jeopardy, TV program.
Oh. Burroughs, Kerouac, and Ginsey are accepted in the literary style.
On the contrary, Gregory.
The point is, those three were the big ones. And if anybody afterwards is...
Well, that's all right with me.
But it ain't all right with me because they were the only way to place me. I had my book published before his.
Yeah, but Gregory, you seem very bitter and...
Bitter?
Your poetry and your work is so joyful and happy.
Bitter? I'm not a bitter man. Bitter?
Up at my palms, top all your shots. Watch the game, you don't even know what's going to happen 80 years from now. These fuckers may be niente.
Gregory Corso.
Whereas Lowell-born author Jack Kerouac is known as one of this century's most important figures in American literature.
Now everybody says, oh, I went to school with him. Oh, yes, I knew him very well.
Dear Daddy Jack, I am your real daughter that you never found. Love everlasting, Jan Michelle. They have totally shat upon the whole premise of the Beat Generation, which is to be free and free speech, and it's Kerouac gate.
Ladies and gentlemen, an American hero, American bard, American genius.
You can't see on the left, it says all proceeds for this image go to the Jack Kerouac School of Poetics in Naropa Institute, Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, that's great. This goes to the...
I got my alibi.
Oh, that's good. That's a good cause.
I have my alibi for not selling out.
Not many people do. No.
True teacher, death, I do thank you for inspiring me to sing this blues. Father, breath, once more.
Alan died April 5th, 1997. He said to me, I thought I would be terrified, but I'm exhilarated. His last words to me.
Will tell.
Larry was another. I talked to Tim the night of his death. He said, why not?
Let us pray. Our Father, whose art's in heaven, hallowed be thy name, unless things change.
Keep the fire alive. Keep love alive, brothers. Keep love alive.
Do you still write poems and things? Still?
Me? I never stop in my life writing poetry. When I feel like writing a poem, I write a poem. How can you stop?
Could you give us a line of the newest that you wrote?
A line? A line? All right, death is a rumor spread by life. How's that?
You'll come again?
It's continuing a tradition. You know, it's continuing a tradition and finding our antecedents. I mean, so we have to look back before we can look forward.
You should be putting me out of my misery. Give me some snack and a case of blackjack, and I will save us all from a world of shit.
His legs were left in Vietnam. His arms were found in Sing Sing. His scalp is on Nixon's belt. His blood paints the streets of the ghetto. His eyes are still looking for Jesus to come down from some cloud and make everything all right when Jesus died in Attica.
They just stepped right off the edge, and we're on the edge too.
We need our light right now. I say now or never right now. Give us our sight right now. Give us our light right now. Now or never right now.
Yeah. Talked about the hot sperm seed being spilled on the ground and how the birds fluttered. And you know, I was 16 and I knew what that was about. And you didn't talk about it, you know. And it let me feel okay. It let me feel okay.
Bashful beneath her t-shirt, draped across shoulder blades and collarbones, pushes straw hair from hollowed eyes and asks, "Am I beautiful to you?"
I could clearly see revealed the connection of her black seam stockings and her red garters, like two deadly circuits fused to activate a device of total annihilation.
Vengan todos mis hermanos y hermanas, all the mambo kings and cumbia queens, Aztec lords, Inca princesses, every Hernandez and Fernandez. it's time to make our move.
Don't tell me about it. I don't want to know about 6-year-old black girls getting raped by 12 pigs in KKK uniforms, carving up her belly and throwing her out in Staten Island like some kind of sack of garbage in a plastic sheet.
Oh, MTV, you must shine like a beacon, for I am getting old and my knees are creaking. Please give these young people some food for thought. You really should. You really ought.
I read Kerouac and I feel that what he's saying is that he's not looking for a universal meaning to life, but he's saying, fuck you, I'm gonna make my own meaning, and if you don't like it, then kiss my ass.
I was mute, tongue-tied, burdened by shadows and silence. Now I speak, and my burden is lightened, lifted, free.
I know this body is impatient. I know I constitute only a meager voice and mind, yet I loved, I love. I want no sentimentality. I want no more than home.
A young person will come up to me, and he'll be standing there. Maybe he'll have a mohawk, or maybe he'll have one side of his head shaved and the other side in dreads. And he and I are sharing many of the same thoughts. He's anti-war. He believes in the environment. And that person will say, "Whatever happened to the Beats and to the '60s? Did they just get run over by the steamroller of the corporations?" And it makes me want to laugh, because this kid is so much like what so many people from that period made possible. He's standing there in his own natural, much freer body asking me those things, and it's kind of funny, because I think, you know, you're us.
Because we're the source.
What is that feeling when you're driving away from people and they recede on the plane till you see their specks dispersing? It's the too huge world vaulting us, and it's goodbye. But we lean forward to the next crazy venture beneath the skies.